because you spoke about this concept of peace that's always thrown around, and it's like, can you actually spell that out? What does that look like to you? Does it look like only speak when I'm asked?
No.
Or
it's not some dictatorship. It's not.
Because I spoke about this earlier about the whole emotional depth stuff. It's like, if you have the appetite for it one day, it's fine, but if you don't have the appetite for another day, it's a bit overbearing. And then now I feel like I'm asking you for more or too much.
I get that. Okay, I would say there's two things I would say. The first thing is that a man's relationship with his time is the same relationship a woman has with her kitty cat. It's something you want to share, but it has to be willingly given. You can't just demand and take it. So, and I think a lot of the time, if a guy has the courage to express that, maybe he just wants some time for himself, a lot of the time a woman can take that as a rejection of her, and it's not. It's not that he doesn't want to spend time with you, it's that he just needs some time for him.
But you see that little window of communication that I just need, that can go such a long way.
I completely agree.
That is me.
I completely agree.
And
I agree. Guys should get better at being able to communicate that.
But I can also appreciate that a lot of men perhaps don't even know that it's like it's all an emotion, perhaps. It's like the things are coming up for you, you can't verbalize it, or
I tell you,
am I wrong?
I'm just going to be honest. No.
Is it me? Am I the problem?
No. A lot of guys think women just can't handle the truth.
I'm sick of that.
It's true. I'm sorry. I'm sick and tired. I'm sorry. But it's true, because guys, like, a lot of the times guys are held responsible for a woman's emotions. Like, if we're dating in a relationship, if you're unhappy, it's my fault. That's the narrative. If you're happy, great, I'm doing well.
Is that how you guys see it?
That's the narrative that we're sold.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, if there's a truth that I don't have to tell you, that's going to keep you okay, there's an incentive for him not to tell you. Personally, for me, I'll say it. You can ask my girlfriend. I will tell it to her straight. But that's why. That's not saying guys shouldn't have the courage to do that, and they should. But there's, especially with this whole thing of like, there's such a strong narrative of, okay, well, if you feel it's right, then it is right. And what you feel is king. And it's like, is it though?
Really?
Is what you feel king? Not really. Like, sometimes what you feel is right, but sometimes what you feel, you have every right to feel that way, but your assessment or conclusion is wrong.
Wrong, yeah.
It's wrong. So when it comes to peace, part of it is guys don't have the courage to ask for space, or what I should say, not space, ask for space for themselves, and they need to get better at that. Part of it is, as a woman, just choose your battles. It's something my grandma said to me, why, her marriage lasted 55 odd years before my granddad passed. Choose your battles. Not everything has to be addressed. Like, maybe he didn't do the dishes one time, right? It's like, so annoying. Like, I specifically asked if he could do this and he didn't do it. 100%, I get the frustration. But if this man shows up for you, if he loves you, if he provides for you, if he makes you feel safe, feel heard, feel seen, is the dishes that much of a big deal in this grand scheme of things? It's not. And when you start thinking of things in a certain mindset, it starts to change how you feel about the thing. You're like, you know what? It's actually not a big deal. Yeah. It's not a big deal. And I'll be honest with you, guys let a lot of things go for the sake of peace within the relationship.
I can appreciate that.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So choosing your battles, know when to give him space. And the other thing I'll just say, and the reason I say is because guys sometimes mention this a lot, the second he comes in from a long day, just leave him be. He needs to decompress. Because I think what can happen, or guys express about, they'll come in and straight away their girl is like, let me tell you about my day.
Oh my gosh, babe, do you mind? Oh my gosh. I'm just happy to see you, but I want to tell you about my day.
She's like, she's like, the way I decompress is by telling you everything that happened today with me. But for guys, the way we decompress is we put our stuff down, we get changed to our comfy clothes, we wash our hands, we just sit on the sofa.
Wash your hands.
I'm just like, always wash your hands when you come in, always. You need to be clean.
So funny.
Hygiene is important.
I think everything you said makes sense. I can't there's no rebuttal. I think for me, I'm assessing my own experiences and some of the things that I'm trying to make sense of. And it's like, at what point you know how they always say women are very intuitive. So it's like, I can tell that something's up. I can tell that it could be work, it could be family, it could be anything, right?
Yes.
Things on your mind. I'm giving you that space. I'm just holding space and being normal, quote unquote. But then at a certain point, like I said, for me personally, what makes me feel close to a person is when there is that vulnerability that is being shared. So at what point are those conversations being held? And if this has happened for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I've let it go, when I bring it up 4th week, you might not have noticed that I've been saying nothing. It can still feel like, oh, I'm going through this thing and now you're bringing it up. It might still feel like you're being annoying or you're complaining.
So do you feel, is it that you've noticed there's maybe something going on with him?
Yeah.
And he's not chosen to share that with you yet? And is it that you're like, hey, on the 4th week, you're trying to say, I've noticed something, tell me what's going on? Is that what you're saying?
I think my approach, and I think this is where the work that I do comes into play, I give people a lot of room to kind of like be.
Yes.
Show up. I'm observing, I'm noticing that, you know, even if it's small things like normally you message me good morning and for the last week you haven't, or you've only done it twice a week, I'll notice that. I'm not necessarily going to whinge about it, but it's like, oh, okay, something has changed. I don't know, by week 2 you might hear, oh babe, I've noticed that, you know, this week we haven't really spent that much time on the phone and we haven't met up, like what's up? And at that point, what I have noticed for myself is that I will hear stuff like, oh, I'm just not feeling myself, or stuff's going on. I can hear that 3rd week, 4th week, but I need you to kind of like unpack that for me, because that's not enough for me to hold on to enough to give you the space that you need. Because now I want to know what's wrong. Like, what is it? You've told me what's happening, but you haven't told me how you feel, what you need.
Yeah, 100%. The truth is, it takes a lot of trust for a man to be vulnerable emotionally with a woman. A lot. Like, many men have experienced being too vulnerable too soon, and she used it against him, unfortunately. Now, that's a reflection of her, 100%. But because it takes a lot for men to be vulnerable, and generally in public spaces, if men try and be vulnerable about things they're struggling with in today's society, they're kind of told, this is a patriarchy, you have all the advantage, shut up and get on with it. Right? So a lot of male suffering is not taken seriously, on top of the fact that he doesn't know which woman he can actually be emotionally vulnerable with. So it just takes a lot of trust for him to build up. Now, if you're saying that, if you notice these things and you just say, hey, I've just noticed, you know, there's been a shift of energy. If you want to chat, I'm just letting you know I'm here. That's it. Just letting him know that you are someone that he can come to. He may not do in the first week. He may not do in the first month. But if you're continuing to build things and you are offering that presence and space for him, where you're like, if you want to talk, like, I would like to hear how you're feeling. Guys are never asked that.
I'm like,
honestly, like, the guys are never asked, hey, tell me how you're feeling. Because the thing is, right, and I get it comes from a good place, but when you say, I've noticed that you've not texted me this week, we've not gone on dates and stuff.
I don't use those words, just saying.
What do you mean?
I don't use those words.
Oh, what did you say? You said something. You like, I've noticed you.
I might just bring up the fact that there's been a shift, or like we haven't been speaking, or like is there anything on your mind, or like what's been going on with X situation.
Okay.
But I think the way you worded it is specifically about I'm here, or like I'd love to know how you feel. Those little one-liners really make a difference in communication.
They really make a difference, because I think maybe you didn't mean it this way, but like literally a few minutes ago, you're like, oh, I've noticed that you didn't text me this morning. Like, I noticed that, or
no, I said that I'll mentally notice, but I might not necessarily say to him that. That
makes sense. Okay, that's cool. I think if that is said, I've noticed that you didn't text me this morning. We've not been on dates. All he hears is pressure to do those things.
Okay.
He doesn't hear, oh, she's trying to understand how I feel. All he hears is, I've noticed you're not showing up for me the way I want you to.
Okay.
And that creates pressure.
Okay.
So how you say it, just like, I want to know how you're feeling. Guys are hardly ever asked that.
I think my patience grows thin. I think...
What do you mean?
So, you know this whole theory of like, come healed, come open, come ready?
I've never heard that, but I love that.
Yeah, so
Come
it's
healed,
like,
come open,
for
come
the
ready.
most part, I'll be minding my business, living my life, doing Naomi, and
Yes.
a man will see Naomi and be like, oh, curious, want to get to know Naomi. And he will get whatever impression, or kind of, he will be on his pursuit. He'll court me. So you've come to me, and it's like, I'll be under the impression that you're coming here because you're willing, open, moderately ready to explore some of these vulnerabilities.
Yes.
So I can be patient with you and show you that grace, and kind of like, you know, but then it's like, okay, well, why are you here if you're not ready to be open and vulnerable? Why are you here if you can't communicate with vulnerabilities? It's a bit frustrating for me to leave me alone.
I completely get completely get that 100%. So this is where, even though you're the woman, you can lead by example. You can show him that this is a space to be vulnerable, to be open, and to share. Because I get, you're like, give this to me, like, I'm here. But he doesn't know if he can trust you yet. And so because it's harder for guys, and if you're going to be that woman in his life, part of being that woman is knowing how to get that from him.
Okay.
And it's not about manipulation, but it's about making him feel safe enough that he can do that with you. We always talk about, do women feel safe? Do they feel emotionally safe? Do they feel physically safe, mentally safe? I can't remember the last time someone said, does he feel emotionally safe? I don't think I've ever heard that. I think that's the first time I've ever put those two words together. Does a man feel emotionally safe? If a man wants to have sex with you and be intimate with you, he has to make you feel safe for you to be vulnerable with him. Because that is being very vulnerable as the woman. Like a man, not to sound crude, but a man is entering you.
Yeah,
Literally. Like, you are opening yourself up. Like, you are literally being vulnerable. I'm just making the point. For those of us who don't know how it works.
First of the bees, like,
you're bending. No, sorry.
oh my goodness.
But you're being vulnerable, right? You can only be vulnerable with a man who makes you feel safe. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. With a man's emotions and him sharing, like, it's the same thing. Do you make him feel emotionally safe? And part of the way you can do that is by leading by example. If he's not doing it, because it's very much the case, a lot of guys are not as emotionally adept in that area compared to women. But then this is where you can show him how to do it.
That sounds scary.
It is scary. But if you want, but it's more than doable.
It is. I think.
Because that's what his mother does.
I know, but I'm not your mama.
You don't have to. It's not about you being his mom.
And I think.
But your father made you feel safe, and he's not your father, right?
He wasn't around, first of all, so that's a different conversation for a different day.
See?
That.
Well,
he wasn't around enough for me to experience that, to kind of be able to look out for that in my dynamic. So I think for me, I can speak on my own experiences and take about accountability that, you know, that part of me could do with some refining. In terms of being vulnerable, I'd say that when I sense an element of, and I hate to use this, but I think it's the best word to use, fear from a man, then I get more scared. So it's like, even though I would love to be vulnerable and share, but it's like when I sense that, because we speak about men being leaders, it's not just about finances, we're speaking about the entirety of the relationship. Exactly.
Of course, 100%.
So if I'm sensing that you're okay to lead when it comes to planning dates, taking me out and paying for stuff, but when it comes to emotional availability and so forth, you're not as confident, it makes me feel like, okay, well then maybe I shouldn't be as confident either.
Do you feel that a man has to be able to lead in everything?
No.
Okay. Well then,
I think for me, when I reflect on my dating experiences, I think most of the men are very comfortable in the element. So for me, that's not a no-brainer. I don't have to worry about that aspect.
Sure.
So because that's like almost second nature, the one area where I feel like I want to see leadership is the emotional part, but I think that's the most difficult for men.
You're not wrong.
Did that make sense?
It did make sense.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong. But this is where we look for things in someone that complement us.
Okay.
So if we're talking about the masculine and feminine, the masculine covers where the feminine is weak and the feminine covers where the masculine is weak. So if that is an area, if he's got everything else, like you said, those other qualities that maybe you like in a man, but that is an area where he's lacking and you're very strong in that, that's amazing, because that's an area that you can take point on. Just because a man is in leadership, that doesn't mean he's going to be taking point in every situation. Like part of being a good leader is knowing when to take guidance from someone else for an area you're not strong in. So like the leader of like a platoon, right? If he's trying to scout the enemies, they have a scout and he goes, okay, the scout, tell us where to go. Tell us where we need to go. And if you're the scout, you're technically leading the team because this is your area of expertise, even if I'm the quote unquote leader. So even if the emotional awareness and the being vulnerable and providing that space, because it takes space to be vulnerable, if you know how to take lead on that and you can bring him with you, then do that. Because the more you do that, the more confident he's going to be able to take that space with you. And if you are a woman that a man can be vulnerable with, you ain't going nowhere. He's going to do everything to keep you by his side, because that is so hard to find for men.
Hope you really enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode where that clip is from, then I want you to click right here where you can watch the full episode. And if you're ready to claim your man today, enroll in my program below, and I'll see you there. Wishing you an amazing day.